in amazing live sea monkeys from her crumbling estate on the Potomac, Maryland. Yolanda Signorelli von Braunhut is engaged in a David-and-Goliath battle to wrest control of her late husband Harold's iconic toy amazing live sea monkeys. Yolanda is trying to wrestle back control from corporate men who she insists stole from her. Harold von Braunhut and Yolanda Signorelli worked together for 40 years before Harold, a genius magician, scientist, and inventor, passed away and left his iconic novelty toy in Yolanda's care. Yolanda alone possesses the true sea monkey's secret formula, and she alone must free them, not only from their captors, but also from the stain of her husband's dark legacy. Amazing Live Sea Monkeys is directed by Mark Becker and Aaron Schock, and they previously directed the TV docuseries Instant Life that debuted a few years ago, and Amazing Live Sea Monkeys debuted at the 2026 South by Southwest Film Festival. Amazing Live Sea Monkeys is basically an updated documentary film on that TV series Instant Life from a few years ago. In this film, Amazing Live Sea Monkeys, where we meet Yolanda, she is in her house and she hasn't paid her electricity bill, and she has to endure in this house without no electricity, no heating, and it's quite cold. And we meet Yolanda in this film. It's in the months ahead where her court case against the big toy company that she partnered with decades ago to produce these sea monkeys, this sea monkey toy. This documentary jumps back in time. It's in the present time, and then when her legal battle against this big toy company, and also it jumps back in time. We meet Yolanda when she, in the 60s, when she was a teenager, 17 years old, she moved to New York City and to be a model, and she did some modeling, and then she got into some like exploitation films, being like the damsel in distress and like the buxom woman in her late teenagers in these exploitation films. At this kind of like magician show, because she met Harold von Braunhut. He was a bit older than her, maybe about 20 years older than her, and we find out later in the film he was already divorced and had another family. And when they met, she was not really attracted to him, but she kind of looked up to him as kind of like a father figure. And they start not really dating, but he starts to work for him because he has it's been struggling as a toy inventor and as like a magician for many years. And finally he struck gold as this. He found this like sea monkey formula and developed this as a toy, and then he started advertising it in comic books and to kids, and it became like a burgeoning business for him. And Yolanda joined him on this business and touring the country and toy conventions and stuff like that. And she was kind of like his like model, his like accessory to him. And that's basically the film. It's just like a mix of the history of Yolanda and Harold, and also the current legal battle between Yolanda and the big toy company that they worked with to produce these sea monkeys. But I think this film, the directors Mark Becker and Aaron Schock, I think they probably intended to capture Yolanda in the present time, her legal battle with this toy company. But of course, exploring her life and his life just so much. It's kind of like an onion, just unpeels more and more as the film goes on, and as a viewer, we're on that journey as just more and more information comes out as the film goes on. And this whole bunch of characters in this film, like Yolanda herself is quite a character. I'm not sure how old she is. I think she's definitely had some like plastic surgery done on her face, so I'm not sure how old she is. Maybe she's in her 70s. And in this film, she has like this younger boyfriend in his late 20s, living with her, and it's like he started out like as an electrician working on the house, and then suddenly they start dating, and it's very weird because they don't really officially say they're not really like hugging or get together. Like it's kind of like an unknown secret that they're dating, and then there's this elderly man who doesn't really like the young man as well, because he worked for Harold and he helped make the secret formula and produce these toys, but he kind of doesn't really look like the type of man you would think makes children's toys. And there's like a lawyer who's helping Yolanda with this court case, but he seems to be only helping her because he's attracted to her. It's strange. and then we meet like a toy collector who's obsessed with these live monkey who's been collecting. Or like if you go to his house, his house is just like a memoriam for these sea monkeys and all articles about Harold and Yolanda. And eventually later on in the film, he ends up working with Yolanda on some more future toys in the franchise. And the film actually goes into Harold's history, and then Harold actually grew up Jewish, but then he added the von Braun surname to his name because he's kind of like ashamed by his Jewish ancestry, and then he ends up going into like white supremacy and the KKK, and it's just a whole big gold mine of like information that we find out throughout this film that I think the directors also found out when they started investigating Yolanda and her history with Harold. And like there's an old friend of Harold's who thinks that Harold is not really like a white supremacist. He was like a actor who was just infiltrating the KKK, and then Yolanda, she knows there's this part of history about him, and she's not really at a time to admit like what kind of character Harold really was. And then the final maybe 20 minutes of the film is focused on Yolanda and this court case, and then Yolanda, she's very confident in her because she keeps getting settlements from this big toy company, and she's confident that she can get more money out of them, and if it ends up going to a trial jury, that the jury will favor in her case. So the final 20 minutes of the film is her like basically sort of winning. Like she ends up getting a less settlement, but she ends up getting to gain a control of this live monkey toy, because the toy company, they ended up putting the production of this toy company into China, and then people who bought these toys, they got like defective toys. So Yolanda, she really doesn't like that the name and the image of the brand has really deteriorated over the years because of this toy company, and so she really wants ownership back of this toy company, and she ends up winning back toy company, ends up winning the ownership of this and a settlement from the toy company. And then there's at the end of the film, there's kind of like an epilogue scene, like a 10-15 minute epilogue scene. For me, that went a little bit too long, but it's kind of like visiting what's happening in her life at the moment. She's kind of like tried to build back the reputation of this sea monkey brand and her relationship with her very young boyfriend and the fans of this. So kind of like revisiting, and because she lives on this really big estate, and it's kind of like an animal sanctuary, and it's kind of like deteriorating. So yeah, it's kind of revisiting what she is at the moment. I give Amazing Life Sea Monkeys 3.5 stars out of 5. I do recommend checking out this film. The more you watch this film, it gets more interesting as the film goes on, because it has a whole bunch of very interesting characters that we're introduced to throughout the film. And just Harold himself, Harold von Braunhut, was a very interesting character, I guess, and he lived a very interesting life, and his dark legacy combined with the stuff he was able to invent throughout his life really combines to make a very interesting subject. And Yolanda herself is a very interesting character. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking out this film, Amazing Life Sea Monkeys. Thanks for watching. What did you think of Amazing Life Sea Monkeys? Please comment below what you thought of the film. See you next time. Bye.